Thank you for clicking on my video and welcome to my channel. I filmed this video yesterday, but I reviewed it and I felt like the way I was conveying my points was not very helpful, and just I wasn't being clear in what I wanted to say. So today's video, I kind of just want to talk about adults with influence and interactions with children that those adults may have, and why certain levels of interactions are inappropriate even if they are not romantic or sexual in nature. So I just want to say, first of all, that I understand that teenagers are infantilized and degraded so much in our society, and that's not what I intend to do here. I'm not trying to say teenagers are stupid and they don't know any better. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there are levels of influence and there are levels of power that teenagers just do not have. I also want to make clear that I'm not trying to excuse anybody's behavior at all, no matter their age, but there's a difference between, oh, airplanes. Once I make it big on YouTube, I'm moving to the middle of nowhere. Okay, where was I? Okay, I'm not trying to excuse anybody's behavior, no matter their age, but there's a difference between making excuses and excusing somebody, and to excuse somebody would mean saying that they are not responsible for their behavior and that they are not able to make different choices. There's no ability for them to make different choices. That's not what I'm doing or saying. What I am saying is that there is diminished culpability in the actions of children, especially when they relate to how they interact with adults with influence. I suppose the last little thing I'm going to say here before I get into this video is, no matter what you feel personally about privilege hierarchies in our society, children still do not have power and do not have influence, not legally and typically not interpersonally either. Let's first talk about what it is that an adult has that would both A, draw a child to them, and B, make their interactions with a child include unstable or unequal power dynamics. A lot of times in situations where adults with influence, adults with celebrity cross lines with children, they have certain personality traits or certain... Oh my God! So we're going to look at what this adult looks like from the outside, looking in, what it is that they do or are that makes them someone who has the ability to have an unfair power over somebody else. So first would be age, obviously. Someone who's older, someone who's in their 30s is going to have a totally different level of personal security and decision making that a teenager won't have. It's just human development. It's just how brains develop. Yes, there are 30-year-olds who are extremely immature, and there are 17-year-olds who are extremely mature, but at the end of the day, the power dynamics between an adult and a child are there in part based on what is legally somebody's level of power. Something else that these adults will have is influence. They have an influence, it could be even just a couple thousand people, but they have an influence level that is desirable or that appears to make them special. And having interactions with this person would make a young person with no influence feel more special. Something else that people in this scenario tend to have is an expertise, whether it's 10 years of experience making random YouTube skits or sound design or even public speaking or politics. You know, this person has expertise that somebody of a younger age cannot possibly have. They'll also have a level of security. They'll have some sort of either security in publicity, security financially. They will have something in their life that is secure and almost considered for granted by a younger person. And this would kind of seem like it would go with influence, but not exactly. There's a level of idolization that a lot of times happens. You know, this is somebody who has fans who hang on their every word, who wait for any announcement of new content. These are people who have people who actually idolize them, who want to be close to them because they see this person as better than or more than, or just there's expertise in the arena where they're idolized. So then on the other hand, what is the child in this situation like? First of all, the child typically initiates this interaction. The relationship is typically initiated by the child. What this a lot of times looks like is the child trying to reach out to this adult who they idolize and just get some attention, just be paid attention to. Sometimes it's because they are in the same field of art or want to be in the same field of art, and other times it's because they're just fans of the work. Something else that you'll notice with a lot of these younger people is a degree of precociousness, whether that's in actuality or perceived. This young person will present themselves as if they are on the same level as people who have decades more experience, not only in life, but in the field where they consider themselves precocious in. That goes along with also having talent, intelligence. You know, you have young people who are able to go and complete college in a short amount of time, young people who are proficient in instruments, young people who are filmmakers or are aspiring filmmakers with a degree of promise. This is something I see a lot, where the young person reaches out, says, I'm a fan, and also check out my art. This opens up a level of communication that should be able to be innocent, but most times is not. This young person also will have a lot of admiration for the adult in the scenario. This admiration is greater than that which any adult would really exhibit towards another adult. And this is definitely a huge attraction to this kind of relationship. Healthy adults do not latch on to figures the way a lot of teenagers will. It's just a function of our brains that we have different priorities at different times in our lives. And as teenagers, we are meant to prioritize people who we idolize. And that gives us a diminished ability to see these people as who they are and what they are actually doing when they interact with us. The last thing I notice this child will have to offer in most of these situations is understanding. And this level of understanding is typically a very immature level of understanding and should be seen as an immature level of understanding from the adult in the situation. A lot of times this is talking about past adult relationships or, home life situations, or just in general things that are not for adults to talk to, essentially who are strangers and children about. It's not the level of understanding that the child can offer the adult is typically based on information that the adult should have never given to the child in the first place. This makes the child feel like they understand adult issues when they really don't, and it also makes the adult feel like they are developing a level of trust that would have to be reciprocated, because if the child is this understanding, of course they will also offer the adult their own trust and their own personal stories. So what is the adult offering in this scenario? A lot of times this adult will make goals for the child. The adult will see that the child wants to engage in the artwork that they are an expert in, and they will set goals. They will say, oh, you're doing so good, but try this next time. Oh, how about you try and cover this song? Oh, how about you try this feature in Adobe Pro? You know, it's a lot of goal setting that seems to be based on what's in the best interest of the child and their pursuit of art. And at the end of the day, a lot of times the goal setting really just ends up being a reason to have solid, continued, consistent communication. A lot of times the adult will also offer secrets, whether this is like behind the scenes information about a relationship that played out in public, or content that was never released or is rare. It could even be making that child a moderator of a Discord server or something. You know, these little secret, rare pieces of this person's art and this person's story make the child feel special, and it latches on to this understanding relationship that the adult tries to perpetuate. The adult also offers adult conversations that the child is likely very aware other adults would not have with them. But this typically does not make a child feel like this is inappropriate. Typically it makes the child feel special and like they are being seen as a real, true adult. And being 16, 17, it may feel degrading for me to continue saying child, but you're a child, and adults having adult conversations with children is not okay. It's just not. This is not your parents talking to you about making good or bad choices. This is an adult that you idolize, that is a complete stranger to you, that is sharing intimate details of their life or giving you intimate advice on your own life, and that's just not appropriate. It's completely inappropriate. So a lot of these points are interconnected. The adult offers advice. A lot of advice, whether it's creative advice, interpersonal advice, there's a lot of advice given from the adult to the child. And a lot of times the adult also tries to make this reciprocal, where they will say things that are open-ended in order to give the child the ability to respond with advice for the adult. And it makes this understanding, trusting relationship feel stronger, even if typically the adult knows what the right answer is to this open-ended statement or question. Like I said, points are really interconnected here, but the last thing that I have noted is just creative guidance. I know I've mentioned this before, but it's really important because creative guidance not only gives the child a reason to continue communication, it also gives a level of authority that isn't there just by nature of age. Creative guidance from somebody who has a decade more experience than you do in a field, that is an authority level. You are going to feel, first of all, really just lucky to have that advice, to have that relationship. You feel lucky because this person is a genius. They're good at what they do. A lot of this is a power imbalance issue. Most of it is a power imbalance issue. So why am I talking about this? Well, first of all, I think it's important. This is something I've seen play out in way more than one situation. And it's also something that is relevant to the community that I consider myself in YouTube. I'm not naming names or trying to give any real specifics about scenarios because, first of all, like I said, I've seen this play out before. This isn't just one situation. This is a pattern of behavior that lots of adults have displayed towards lots of children. Most of the time, the adult displays this behavior towards more than one child over a series of years. So I'm not going to name names because, first of all, I think the people who are in my current community on YouTube will know what I'm talking about. I'm going to just talk over these things. Like, fuck it. I am so over it. But what was I saying? Ugh! I have ADHD. Leave me alone. I hate this. Okay, gosh. I have the hardest time remembering anything whenever I get interrupted. Okay, I think I know where I was at. So the reason why I'm not naming names in this is because, first of all, I think the people in my current community on YouTube will understand why I've brought this up. But second of all, I just don't think that this is an isolated situation that should be talked about with individuals' names or with any specifics to the scenario. I just feel like this is a topic that is important and isn't just based on a couple of people. It's just not. So where do we go from here? Things have already happened. Maybe, you know, teenagers have made bad choices based on the influence of adults. So what do we do? What do we say? How do we feel? Well, first of all, diminished responsibility. There is a much lower level of responsibility for a child who makes choices based on what an adult has told them and what an adult has allowed them to believe. So, does that mean that if somebody who is a teenager makes a bad choice, we go ahead and 100% blame the adult? No. But I think that while there is a level of blame that can be placed on children, even though I say it is a diminished amount of responsibility and blame, I think what we really need to be thinking about is why it is that adults cultivate relationships with children, influential adults with celebrity. Why do they cultivate relationships with children that consistently cross so many of these lines, where they're having adult conversations and where there's a position of authority and expertise, where there's goal setting between the two people? I think what we really need to do is start thinking more about why adults make the choices they do, because we know why children make the choices they do. We know it's because they're children, because their ability to make decisions is not fully formed. And in a lot of situations like this, the bad decisions that appear to be made by the children are like split-second decisions, or things that there's a lot of stress and there are a lot of tension around making these choices, and a lot of times these choices seem to be in time constraints, where an adult will say something like, if this is that important, you can email me through an official email, or you can give me your phone number to your office, and I will contact you through official methods so that I know who you are and that you need what you say you need from me. A lot of times a child in such a situation will get scared and will say, this sounds really important and I don't know how to deal with it. So, yeah. I guess in conclusion, adults need to have boundaries with children, because children do not know A, what an appropriate boundary is, or B, why it should be set. It's an adult's responsibility to set and keep boundaries, especially when children are concerned. When we have a situation where an adult has crossed boundaries with a child, we need to look more at why the adult chose to cross those boundaries, why it is that it's not appropriate for adults to cross those boundaries, and we need to stop thinking less about what children do in response to their extra access and stress and quick decision making. Because at the end of the day, children do what they do because their brains do not have the capability to make quick thought processes happen and have good decisions come out of them. Let's look at the adults. Let's look at the adults, okay? If you like this video, make sure to give it a like, let me know to do more stuff like this, and if you like me, make sure to subscribe to my channel.